So it's today my pleasure to announce that we are talking about Ashtottari Dasha and Rahu. I think this is the first time that we are doing the Ashtottari Dasha on BAVA ever. So this is a brand new subject for all of you. And so Andrew Foss, and we have vedicsoftware.com. I don't know, I was looking for your pictures and I found this and have no idea where this photograph is from.
Some States, I think.
Yeah. So Andrew's software, vedicsoftware.com. Andrew is the author of Yoga of the Planets. He's author of the fabulous Vedic software, Shri Jyoti Star. So it's a real pleasure to have him there. So Andrew, do you want to do the chanting yourself? Then I won't double it up.
Okay. I'll do it.
Yeah. So
are we going to you want to say a word about the BAVA conference coming up?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying in a second. Okay. So the email for BAVA, you can email Pam at healingstars.com as she's the membership secretary, or bavauk@gmail.com. So we are now up and ready with our 26th International Conference. The topic is Rahu Ketu, and it's from 22nd April to 8th May 2023. The faculty is Sanjay Rath is our main leading speaker, Andrew Foss, Sarvani Rath, Vishti Larson, Komela, myself, Vijay Goel, Bill Sinclair, Vijaya Subramanya, Raman Suprajama, Niranjan Babu, Keiko Ito, Paul Parker, Kasanati, Jeffrey Pierce, Gordon Brennan, Pandit Samavedula, and I think I'm missing one more person, but there are others as well. You see, the advantage of having an online conference is that we can have speakers from all over the world, as well as audience from all over the world. So at BAVA, we have embraced the online situation, and I have this here. So you can see, if you go on to bava.org, you will get the conference and the theme and everything, and you can see the BAVA program, and it's all there. And here we have the program. And what we are doing basically is that every weekend, so 22nd to 24th April, 28th to 30th April, 1st May, and 7th to 8th May. So weekend we are doing, I think 1st May is Labor Day weekend, so we are having it on Monday as well. But every weekend we have classes that are, it starts on Saturday. And let me just show you just a little bit of the program. It's just brilliant program. You're going to just love it. So at 1 p.m. in UK time, which is useful for here. I am in California. If you're in India, it's useful. So we are trying to have the timing that is worldwide possible. Sanjay Rath's keynote address is Swar Bhanu Knowing Rahu. So this is part A of B. Then Pandit Samavedula is going to do the Navagraha with Guru Chandala Shanti Puja and talk. You see, next year, especially April and May, Jupiter is with Rahu. And so the Guru Chandala Yoga and the eclipses are taking place. And that is why we thought that we are going to do the conference on Rahu Ketu. And then Vishti Larson on Rahu Bhava. So I won't go and look at more of the program. You can go at bava.org. It's very straightforward, and Pam, who's our web designer, has done a really good job getting it all in detail. And of course, Andrew, who has worked really hard on the program. So do join, because I've forgotten the early bird. Let me just look at it. The early bird is coming now.
Till April 8th. April 8th, I think.
Yeah, so April 8th. So if you want the best prices also, then book before. I'm just saying this long program because we have 27 classes really, like the nakshatras. And I'm just saying book now. So the early bird is, so it's just before the conference, and so you will get the best prices. And the once you've booked, you will get the recordings of the day of the conference, approximately end of May. It could be end of June as well, because it is a major process to get these recordings to you. So don't think it just we download and can send them. It's not that easy. And the best prices end on April 8th. And each day also, you need to pre-book earlier, because the program can be, once we come to the conference, then you cannot book like last minute, because it'll already be too late for you to book. So I hope you can join us. And Andrew, you want to say something? Yes.
Well, you can book up to the last moment, but as soon as the thing started, it's not available. So the day of an event, maybe you can't book on the day, but you can
Okay.
the night before, probably.
Okay, good.
It's good to book at least a day in advance.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to the conference. Next webinar, I think we are going to try to do one next month. So question, you can ask the questions at the end. We are not going to have questions before. So you can ask the questions, but Andrew will answer them at the end of the class. So as soon as we finish our talk. And another factor is this is important for you to renew your membership, because BAVA recordings are available to buy for members only. Free webinars are available for members only. Conference you can join, but then, the recordings we are not able to do. So recordings of this webinar are available for streaming. Nowadays, the new thing is all about streaming. So you'll get it for streaming, but for a limited period of time. But if you want to own the recording, you need to buy it, but you can listen to it streaming as well. So that is there. It is over to you. And Andrew is going to talk about Ashtottari Dasha and Rahu. So over to you, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gurave Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatyaye Namaha. So we are only trying to give a little bit of all the teachings of the gurus. That is all we have really, so must respect them. So today we're going to talk about Ashtottari and Rahu. Let me share my screen. Yes, I think we have never discussed Ashtottari. In fact, Ashtottari is hardly ever discussed. And it's, well, I hope by the end of this, you'll be quite interested in the topic. And Ashtottari is defined in terms of Rahu. So that's why I thought maybe we should do something about this when we're focusing on Rahu. So this is our interesting investigation today, because otherwise it's a bit difficult to know what to do with Ashtottari, I think. Anyway, I'm grateful to Remedies for mentioning my book, Yoga of the Planets. It's been very well received. It's not like the typical learn a bit of Jyotish book. This is a a study of the mantras of the planets. So each planet or graha has 108 mantras, which are related to the whole flow of the zodiac through all the nakshatras and navamshas. And this is a traditional thing. These lists of mantras are there from, we don't know how old they are, but they're definitely old. And it had all got a bit scattered and different lists and all that. So I tried to put the whole thing, find the best list, and then I made the book with translation and commentary. So it's a kind of meditation on the planets. And the nice thing is that by the time you've been through the whole zodiac with a planet, I think you've covered, all the principal energies that the planet is embodying. And this is a very great thing for an astrologer, because normally we have just a few keywords for a planet. That doesn't give you the feeling for the planet. And if you're going to do any Jyotish, you have to have a feeling for the planet. So that's the idea. Anyway, you can get it from Amazon. So we have a new version of the software, Shri Jyoti Star 10. This is currently available on the Microsoft Store. I'm working on something for the Apple Store. It's a slightly more challenging to run it on a Mac. It's possible if you want to, but that's all explained on my website. Anyway, this is not a regular update. This is a huge amount of new work that's been done over actually many, many years that's built up to this. So it's I'm trying to give away everything, for the benefit of the community. So I'll be using it a little bit during this session. So what is Ashtottari? Ashtottari means 108. So the implication is 108 years. All these conditional dashas are named by the number of years involved. Vimshotri is 120. Ashtotri is 108. So the dasha lasts for 108 years. Now, we know, I was just saying, 108 mantras. And the 108 mantras of Lord Shiva, of Devi, of Vishnu. I mean, everybody has a set of 108. So 108 is the number. It's the number of the solar system. It's the way the zodiac is defined in Jyotish. There's 27 nakshatras. Each one has 4 padas, and that gives 108. Pada means a quarter. So 27 times 4 is 108. And then we have 12 signs of the zodiac, and each one has 9 navamshas. 12 times 9 is 108. So the rashis and nakshatras synchronize because of the number 108. Each pada of a nakshatra and each navamsha, they're the same. They're not sliding against each other. They are the same bit of sky, because the nakshatras are the root, the stars. It's the root of everything. They're way outside of our solar system. So it's way above the signs, which are generated by the movement of the sun, and therefore more intimate to the solar system. So we say the signs arise out of the nakshatras. I'm not saying that. Maharshi Parashara said that. So this is Parashara's teaching, that the signs are arising out of the nakshatra starting from the beginning of Aries. It's in Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra. So, don't get confused by all the stuff on the internet about the nakshatras drifting one way and the rashis drifting some other way and all kinds of strange things going on. But if you're following Parashara, this is the teaching. So anyway, 108. 108 is a very special number. And in the Vedic system, we think of it as Shri. Shri is the goddess Lakshmi. She's embodied. It's the embodiment, So prosperity, all of the things, good things that can happen, were said to become under Shri. So the 108 number is very auspicious. And it's also the number of our solar system astronomically. It just so happens in this period of time when human beings have been on this planet, that there's been a particular arrangement where the distance from the Earth to the Moon is 108 times the Moon's diameter. And the distance from the Earth to the Sun is 108 times the Sun's diameter. And therefore, when the Moon is correctly positioned, it exactly covers the sun, and that's a total solar eclipse. So we take it for granted because it happens regularly, but it's actually a rare thing, because if you go to some other solar system, there probably never will be any such thing. Because if the moon was a little further away or a little closer to us, as it was, you know, a few 100 million years ago, you would never see a total eclipse in the same way. So it's a speciality of this particular sort of epoch, we could say. I mean, it lasts a few million years, but it's not as like the age of the Earth or anything. So anyway, this is very interesting significance of the 108. So you see, in order to understand Ashtottari, we have to try to understand the various clues given by Parashara, because you don't really see much about it in other books. And the number is the first thing, the first clue. So obviously, some good things can be seen in Ashtottari. But then the whole eclipse thing comes in as well. So when we get occasionally eclipse, that should also show up in the Ashtottari, right? So the lunar nodes, that's Rahu and Katu, they're the nodes of the moon. All the planets have nodes. I mean, there's lots of things in the solar system which could be said to have a node. But the ones that we care about are the ones that cause the eclipses, which are the Rahu and Katu, which are the points where the movement of the moon crosses our orbit around the sun. So if we're orbiting around the sun, the moon is going up and going down and going up like that. So every time it crosses, there's a chance of an eclipse. This is Astronomy 101. Most of you know this. Anyhow, it's always been a big deal for humanity when suddenly in the middle of the day, the sun goes missing. So much so, I mean, there's this sort of famous story about two astronomers in China who were executed for failing to predict a solar eclipse. You know, the emperor didn't like that failure, so they were eliminated. So, I mean, I'm just thinking about this. I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh at I wasn't laughing at them being eliminated, but you know, much of the same nonsense is going on today, isn't it? In various places. But anyway, this gave enormous incentive to everybody interested in the stars who had any chance of becoming a royal astronomer or astrologer, because there wasn't a difference between the two in those days. There was a huge incentive to be able to calculate the eclipses. I mean, the only decent job going was working for the king. But if you messed up, you were finished. So that's why an enormous effort was put into it. You know, the great intellect of humanity was focused on this one problem, and it's not an easy problem at all. You know, the height of achievement of the Greek civilization was this pocket computer they produced. I hope you've heard about it. It was just not much bigger than a mobile phone, little fatter, because it was all done with gears inside, and you just moved a handle and it moved the gears, and the gears were extremely precisely machined so that it actually gave an accurate position of the planets and timing of eclipses. I mean, extraordinary thing. And they were very valuable. So, you know, the Romans, when they attacked somewhere in Sicily, which was a Greek city at the time, the main thing that the general was interested in was getting hold of one of these computers, because they knew there was one person in the city who had one. I believe that, you know, they were looting the city after they took it, but the general just took the computer and left. This is a story. I think this is when Archimedes was killed. Anyway, he was the guy with the computer. So anyway, this is a very important thing. So, you know, because of the fact that Ashtottari is defined in terms of Rahu, as we'll just discuss, this is why all these things are important in our understanding. You know, the possibility of like total blackout for one thing, as well as the beauty of the, the corona that you see. These are all part of the energy of the nodes, and it should show up in the Ashtottari Dasha results. So what did Parashara tell us? Parashara taught, in fact, not just Vimshotri, Ashtottari, there's a whole system of Nakshatra Dashas and Rashi Dashas. So the Rashi Dashas is something that, some people use, some people don't. It's a little difficult, the calculations, because there's too many subtleties to it when you start getting into it. But the Nakshatra Dashas is a very clear system that Parashara has explained, and it's a whole system. Vimshotri is the first one mentioned. It's said to be the Mukhya, which means something like the leader. So mostly we're just using Vimshotri. But what I'm saying here, it's somewhat like taking this driver's seat out of the car and just sitting on it. The whole machine is being left aside apart from one bit. So it's actually a whole system. And one thing that's very important, at least in my experience it is that you should, for any given chart, you should see how which of these dasha systems are particularly applicable to that chart. Because while Vimshotri is thought to be applicable to all charts, the others are conditional. So there's certain rules Parashara gives for, like conditions for applying that. So anyway, I'll show you a few things about that. So the Ashtottari is mentioned second. And in fact, Vimshotri and Ashtottari are like a little group. They have their own system together. It's very interesting. So Vimshotri is particularly applicable to people who are born in the daytime when the moon is waxing, or in the nighttime when the moon is waning. While Ashtottari is the reverse. Ashtottari applies to charts people born in the daytime during the waning moon, or in the nighttime in the waxing moon. See the difference of the two. In the case of Vimshotri, there's a sort of flow of nature. There's daytime, which is light, waxing, which is light, and the light is increasing, or is decreasing. But it's going in a flow, as it were. While in the Ashtottari case, it's daytime, but it's dark. It's nighttime, but it's light, as far as the waning and waxing is concerned. So there's a kind of juxtaposition, is the best word I could find. Could be other words, but between the flows of nature. So there's a more drama, we could say, because when everything is flowing along nicely, it's not very dramatic. Jyotish becomes more interesting when there's more drama, isn't it? Like, somebody has a very ordinary life and nothing happens. As far as we are concerned, nothing's happened. They've had lots of small drama, but, it's difficult to say much about them astrologically. But if someone has some drama in their life, then this becomes more obvious in the chart. So we can suspect that Ashtottari is good for drama. And of course, Rahu and Katu are very good for drama. And Rahu is particularly the dramatic of the material life. Ketu is more of the spiritual life, we could say. So the karma control planets, or we say the drama control planets, this is maybe more tied to Ashtottari. We have to see what we think. So this is a kind of first clue. Now, what does Parashara say about the use of Ashtottari? He just says, Phalartha Visheshita. What does it mean? See, Visheshita means something special, and Phalartha, Phala is the fruit, the result of what is experienced. Everything you experience is a phala, or fruit. And Artha is some kind of special meaning to it. So it's like there's certain special applications of this dasha, but he's not getting into what they are. So we have to figure it out from the clues that are being given. So yeah, that's something that needs a little bit meditate on this. But there's certain applications for which Ashtottari will be particularly good. That's my take on it. I mean, for years I've been noting that it's very good for marriage. But, you know, having recent studies, I would say there's a great deal more to it. Now let's look at these two again, you know, Vimshoti, Ashtottari together. So this is one special thing about these two, which doesn't apply to any of the other dashas, which is that in the case of Vimshotari, the sun has 6 years and the moon has 10 years and Jupiter has 16 years. So the sun plus the moon equals Jupiter, you could say. In my book, I explain the whole, you know, length of the periods of the Vimshotari, as well as the sequence of the planets, based on a few little things like this. So it's got a deep significance in the Vimshotari. And when you think about it, the sun is the natural karaka for the father, the moon for the mother, and Jupiter for the child. So sun plus moon, mother plus father equals child is a fairly standard bit of human understanding, right? Very basic. So what about Ashtottari? The sun is still 6 years. Nothing is changing on that front. But the moon has suddenly got 15 years, and Jupiter Jupiter doesn't come into its Venus. Venus has 21 years. You know, there's two gurus in the system. Jupiter is one guru and Venus is the other guru. These are the two big Brahmins of the planets. And so what we're seeing here is that the guru is being indicated, Prashra, by giving these numbers to these two systems, has shown us that Jupiter is the kind of ruling teacher of the Vimshotari system, while obviously Venus is the ruler or the guru of the Ashtottari. Now let's think about it. Brihaspati is the guru. Brihaspati means Jupiter. That's another name. So he's the guru of the gods or suras. So the whole idea of the suras is they're supposed to keep everything in harmony. Harmony means the rain comes on time, you know, the sun shines on time, the seasons are pleasant and amenable. All these things are supposed to be taken care of by the gods. But unfortunately, from time to time, the asuras, the ones who are not sura, they come along and they take over from the gods, throw the gods out, and then it rains at the wrong time and the sun shines at the wrong time. And all these problems, what we call today climate change, are a product of the usurping of the rule of the gods by the other lot, whatever we call them. But the standard thing is asura, the ones without the sura. So they have this kind of cruelty because they're a bit greedy, you know, they want everything for themselves. They want to take everything. So, and there's this sort of arrogance that we're the best and, you know, we can beat up anybody. And they usually do succeed in beating the gods initially. But then what happens is there's a lot of suffering. It goes on for a long time. It's not like it's all fixed in a day. No, a long period of time lasts because the Asuras made a really big effort to take over. It wasn't just a small thing for them. They also worked hard at it. And then the gods, they get desperate. The rishis are suffering because they're not being respected and their meditation is being disturbed by the Asuras. So they all go to visit Brahma, the creator. This is the first person you go and visit. So they go to Brahma and they say, look, and then sometimes Mother Earth goes also. You see, there's this beautiful kind of image brought forth by the Vedic literature where Mother Earth appears. She usually appears in the form of a cow in front of Brahma, and she's just crying. You know, cows they're prone to crying. An interesting story I heard a few days ago, how in the old days in India, and a few places it's still continuing. So, you know, there were cows that were kept so that the family had milk. And those cows had a room in the house. So it was just, I've seen it inside someone's house. They had a special sort of, it's a little barn area, but it's its own room inside the house. And this is where the cows were at night time. In the daytime, they were free to move around. But there was this very special bond between the people and the cows, and often between one particular person and a particular cow. So it was noticed, it's been noticed by people I've heard from, that if the human was suffering, even if the cow wasn't present at all, they were off somewhere in some field somewhere, the cow would be crying because it would feel the suffering of the human. So this thing is, now when I was in Hong Kong, there was a day when they were bringing the cattle to the abattoir, you know, the slaughterhouse, and one cow refused to get off the, you know, come out of the truck. And it was quite literally crying. And all the abattoir staff, they saw this and they collected money between all of them, and they bought the cow and basically put it in retirement somewhere, because they were overcome by seeing this cow crying. So anyway, this is Mother Earth appears like a cow. She cries in front of Brahma. Nobody can bear it. So Brahma says, okay. And usually Brahma's not, you know, he's a Brahmin. He doesn't pick up weapons and go fighting. So he then says, all right, come with me and we'll go and visit Vishnu, or sometimes Shiva. Or sometimes they go to Vishnu and then they all go to Shiva. It depends on the situation. But in all the stories of the avatars, this is what happens, that they go and visit Vishnu, Lord Vishnu, and then he says, he says, okay, because he's, you know, the idea of God is he's not independent. Whatever his devotees are asking for, he's kind of obliged to provide it. I mean, that's his nature. What can you do, you know? So that's, if you pray hard enough, I mean, it will get it. Just you have to know who you're praying to. So anyway, so then there's a big battle because, you know, Lord Vishnu comes and the Asuras are fighting back, and the whole thing goes on like that, you know. We know the stories of the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. And then they say that once the demon is killed, sometimes they go to the Devi also. Really tough cases, they go to the Devi. So when the demon is killed, then it always says in the Vedic literature about how suddenly the rain is on time, there's no more droughts and floods, and everything is growing nicely in the fields. So we should remember that at this time, I think. So anyway, this is Brahaspati and Shukracharya. Shukracharya is the guru of the Asuras. He was made the planet Venus as a sort of reward for his devoutness. He's very devout, but he was given the job of being the guru of the demons, so he has to help them out. And his way of helping them out is that every time they get killed fighting the gods, he sprinkles some magic dust or utters some mantra, and they come back to life again. So this is very, very symbolic, isn't it? Because we get born and we try this and that, and then we die. And then we haven't fulfilled all the desires we had, so we get born again. We try again, you know. And this goes on and on and on, until finally we had enough of it, you know. So enough. So, but this bringing you back to life again and again is typical, is the power of Venus, what they call the Sanjivani, which is said to be, you know, Shukracharya acquired this power. So Venus is the one who is sort of controlling that whole thing. But Rahu, you know, is also very symbolic of this birth and rebirth, because the thing that makes us very attached to things on this planet, you know, we start to think this is valuable or that is valuable, even though later on we realize it was all just childish behavior. But at the time we think this is really valuable, I have to have this. This is Rahu in the Jyotish. We see this in terms of Rahu. So there's this connection there between the demon Rahu, who's the head of the armies of the Asuras, and Shukracharya is Guru. And then Mars is the leader of the armies on the other side. So whenever Mars and Rahu comes together, it's war. That's the real drama happens in a big way. It's powerful opportunity, but it's difficult to live with because of that, really. So now, what is the definition of Ashtotari? Well, the first definition was the day and the dark half, or the night and the bright half. Then we have that Rahu should not be in the Lagna. It specifically says, not in the Lagna. Lagna means ascendant. But it should be in a Kendra, that's an angle, or a Kona, that's a trine, to the ascendant Lord. This is a very interesting and peculiar definition given us by Parashara. So it's obviously a clues. Now the Lagna is your own fame and your intelligence, your vitality in various things. So if you have Rahu in the Lagna, there's always the risk of the reputation taking a hit, you know. It's not it's a bit of a tough one, but it's completely different when the Rahu has some kind of connection to the Lagna Lord, because the Lagna Lord is the application of the intelligence. It's not the reputation or even the intelligence itself. It's the application of that intelligence, how you're applying it. And if Rahu is in an angle or a trine to the Lord of the Ascendant, then you will have some capability. You'll what they say, the good word, I came up with this. Well, canny is one word. This idea of being canny or shrewd, or you have a lot of smarts, we could say. It gives some capability in this world. You see, this is a worldly thing. And Rahu is the dominant energy, really, amongst humanity. I mean, what differs between humans and the animals is that we have more Rahu, basically. In other words, our ability to exploit is far greater than any animal. But we see even amongst the animals, there's variations. Some are more capable. And then between the animals and the plants, there's a huge leap in capability of exploiting. You know, animals do exploit the environment. So we're just on another level. So it's all at different grades of Rahu, really, astrologically. So this is the clue that Ashtotari could have a lot to do with worldly success, but lots of drama. So the first nakshatra is Ardra. Well, you see, this really emphasizes the Rahu again, because from the Vimshotari point of view, Ardra is ruled by Rahu. But then if we're not considering Vimshotari, which we aren't, then Ardra is actually more connected to Shiva, or Rudra, we should say. And this is in the middle of Gemini, Ardra. So, and it's ruled by the sun in the Ashtotari system. So it definitely has this sort of energy of Shiva. We could say there's some divine power associated with it that comes through this nakshatra. So anyway, the whole setup of the lordships is different from Vimshotari. In Vimshotari, we know it's Ketu and Venus and Sun, like that, starting from Ashwini. Or you say the Sun is in Kritika, and then it goes Sun, Moon, Mars, like that. But for Ashtotari, we're starting from Ardra. I mean, there's a variation of Vimshotari that starts from Ardra also. It's in my new version of the software. But at least I think in the Jaimini version, it's an advanced kind of thing. But some people use it for the stock market. Anyway, the thing is that in the Ashtotari system, then the nakshatras, the 27 nakshatras, actually, we use the 28 nakshatra system. You know, Abhijit is included. And once you have 28, you have 4 times 7. right? 28. So then now there's a distribution between the planets, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, like that. So 4 nakshatras go to the sun, and then we have 3 nakshatras going to the moon, then 4 to Mars, 3 to Mercury, 4 to Saturn, 3 to Jupiter, 4 to Rahu, and 3 to Venus. So it's a totally different setup. That means the lordships of the nakshatras are different. I'll show you in a minute. So the fact that we've got a 28 nakshatra system is another clue, because normally the teachings that I've received is that the 27 nakshatras is standard worldly life, and the 28 system is designed for more spiritual application. So this is something that maybe is to be taken into account here for Ashtottari. And then we also notice that Ketu has been removed. Ketu doesn't get any nakshatras. This is the case for quite most of the conditional dashas. Either Ketu is missing or Ketu and Rahu is missing. So there's some implication, that comes about because of that. And one teaching that I've heard is that if you have a system that Ketu is not included in, that means that Ketu is kind of ruling the whole system. I mean, this is just one point of view. Another point of view is that Ketu's results also show up in the Rahu dashas. So anyway, this is something for research to see. But there is quite a possibility here that somebody's spiritual experiences may be visible in Ashtottari Dasha. Okay, so this is a table in Shri Jyoti Star 10, and it has the nakshatras, and then it has the rulers. Now, in the this thing is incredibly useful. It'll show things like nakshatra parivartana. That'll be marked here if it applies. And then it's giving a keyword for every nakshatra, you see. Normally we have these special nakshatras, which there's just a few of them. Like the 10th is the karma nakshatra. I recently gave a lecture on karma nakshatra for Kumila's conference. But actually, every single one of them has a keyword like that. And so it's all given here. This is the Tara scheme. This is a 3 times 27 scheme. It's not a 4 times 7 for 28 nakshatra scheme. This is the 27. But it can be applied, Ashtottari can be applied to it. That's a very advanced kind of thing. So I put it in the Jaimini. But this is the situation with the Ashtottari. So you can see this is the lord of the nakshatra. These are the planets in it for a particular chart. So here in case the moon here is in Chitra, it's ruled by Mars. And then you see then there's Mercury, Saturn, Jupiter. And then when you get to Abhijit, you don't see Abhijit. So there should be 4 here, but there's one of them is this kind of secret one slotted in there. And then Jupiter, Rahu, Venus, Sun, Moon. You see how it works. So if you're doing a full analysis, this is quite useful. All right. Now, how common, what is the likelihood of us being a Ashtottari type person? Well, it's about 22%, 23%. If you think about the rules that Parashara has given, so the day-night waxing waning thing is half the people. So that's a 50-50. And then there's the Rahu being in a Kendra or Kona, the Lagna Lord, that's another 50-50. But then if we say Rahu should not be in the Lagna, that's only a few people have Rahu in the Lagna. So you can write it down like this, and what you get is exactly this. So, and I have one database of 5,000 charts, and I just ran a scan, and I found a little over 22%, which is what, in other words, it's random. It's basically as expected. There's no standout in that database. So you have about a 1 chance in 5 of being an Ashtottari person. So, but as we see, you know, it's not like it's not the fantastically, I mean, it's nothing good or bad about it. It's just another viewpoint that may be particularly applicable. So I wanted to show you, since you might be interested. Let's see, here we go. Okay. So this is my software. I thought I'd just show you that how you do a scan for something, because yesterday someone was saying you should give more examples. So there's a little thing here, you click Yoga for yogas, and this is the custom yoga builder. So in this one, you can create a yoga and then look for it in the database. So let's just create the Ashtottari rules. You click New. Now the first, we call it something. So we can find it again later. So the first thing is, let's say that Rahu should not be in the ascendant. So up here, A, we make it Rahu. And then here it'd be the ascendant. So the way you do the easiest way, there's usually several ways of doing things, but the easiest thing is to say Rahu is in the ascendant and then say not that. Okay, so we say item A, which is Rahu, conjunct item C, which is ascendant. So it appears here. And then there's a handy little thing in negate line, so it's not in the ascendant. So it's easy once you know it's where the things are. That's what I'm just showing. So then we want to say Rahu is in a Kendra or a Kona, angle or a trine from the Lord of the Ascendant. So you go Lord of the Ascendant. Okay. So now we go down here. So this is house groups from C. You know, Kendra is a house group. Trine is a house group. And I decided to put them both together here, angle or trine. It in any condition. This is not needed. So there's that. And then we want to have this thing about the day and the night. So since we're going to have an either or situation, we have to put one rule or the next rule. So we have to put them in brackets so the computer knows what we want. So actually you need 2 brackets. It's down here. Then we'll say, here's a thing called others. Here's day, night, and here's the panchang. So we could click day. And then here we say waxing, waning. We want day and waning. Close the bracket. Put all. This is all being recorded, so you can look at it again if you like. And then we can do night and waxing. Close the brackets. So there's our rule. It's very simple once you know how. So it's one of the, anyway, I'm going to make more videos giving more examples. So then we click search database and you get a list of charts. We're going to look at some of these charts now. So that's how I found them. Okay, so let's see what's next. Yeah, so let's just start looking at some charts. So this is a good lady, Annie Lennox. You heard of her? I clicked on the wrong one. Here's Annie. All right, so this is Annie Lennox. Now, the thing about Annie Lennox, she was a very brilliant artist and singer, you know. So she was also an activist and she campaigned for various charities. She did a lot of work. Eventually, she was honored by the Queen for all her charity work. And the fact is that throughout her life, she was a success. So it's not like we could say, oh, this time it was booming, then it failed and all that. Because once she got going, she just kept going. But she got going during Rahu. It was the Rahu Dasha here that was the thing that really, she became famous during Rahu. So we see in her chart, she's got Virgo rising, and the Lord, let's say the Lord is Mercury, it's here with Rahu. So this, you can see the rule is applying. The moon is a little ahead of the sun, so it's waxing, but the sun's in the 4th house, that's around midnight, so it's waning. So it's nighttime. So that's, you see the whole rule is applying here. And it seems to me, we'll see, but more planets associated with Rahu, the better in a way, because they tend to give more results. Anyway, we see in this case that her fame, you know, there's an aspect here, and then the Lord is here. So the whole fame came through this Rahu time or experience. And it just kept going. So there was nothing much more to say about that. All right, so this is Al Gore. Now, Al Gore, I think, is a bit known to many people. And he had a, you know, very interesting life. So I didn't enter the events, enough events for this one, but I have a list of events. So in the Jupiter Dasha, he enlisted for Vietnam. You know, he was at Harvard, and just about 100% of the Harvard students managed to avoid going to fight in Vietnam. Well, they say 12% went. The other 88% found some excuse and tended to be let off. They later became presidents and vice presidents, unfortunately. But Al Gore decided on his own that it would be good if he volunteered. So he volunteered. He wasn't wounded or anything. So this all happened during Jupiter. Then he was discharged from the army. He's only in the army for less than a year. And he first became a member of Congress during Jupiter. So let's have a look here. We've got Rahu is in the 10th house in Aries. But what we're trying to do is do a little bit different sort of analysis here from our regular thing. And since Rahu is the sort of topic of interest, the first thing we want to determine is which planets are associated with Rahu. Because the question is, does that make a difference? So here in this chart, you can see, for example, there's a drishti or aspect of Rahu on Venus. Now, some people don't use this, but believe me, it's said by many astrologers to be the most powerful of Rahu's drishtis. It's very strong. So where Rahu's sitting is strong, the second place is strong, and then the trines are strong, and the 7th place also. So these are the places that are being particularly looked at by Rahu. Of course, planets in Kendras have some synergy with Rahu, but particularly Venus, Jupiter, and the moon, because this is a trine here. So we see Jupiter's really, his sort of fame, as it were, starts. He becomes somebody during Jupiter. And then as soon as Rahu started, in Rahu moon, in fact, well, it wasn't right at the beginning, but now there's a very interesting thing about Ashtottari, because it's so much wrapped up with Rahu, perhaps. Parashara didn't say, but I'm suspecting, the Antardasha system goes backwards. I don't know if you noticed this, you see. Jupiter starts with Saturn subperiod and ends with Jupiter. Then Rahu starts with Jupiter. So the subperiod continues on into the next dasha. There's a sort of carry-on. It's a very interesting phenomenon in the Ashtottari. And you'll see that, you know, something will happen here, and a bit of it will still be going before everything changes. So then you get to the end of the thing, Rahu, Rahu. So in the malefic dashas, the hit comes at the end, in a sense, we could say, you know. So what happened in Rahu, Rahu? His son suddenly decided he was going to cross the road and visit some friend of his on the other side, and he was hit by a car. And to begin with, they thought he was dead. He wasn't breathing. But somehow some nurse was there, and they got him to the hospital, and he got resuscitated. And I mean, it took months to recover. And he was going to run for president, and then he dropped out because of the sun tax. So it was a big impact on his life. It was very, in fact, he said his whole life started at that time because his whole mentality changed. You know, there's nothing like being exposed to a terrible loss or death, in fact, to change your mentality. So it's good, really, in that sense. So he was a senator, and then this thing happened. So then Venus started. See, Venus, Rahu, running up to 1992. So what happened at the end of this? He got elected as vice president of the United States. So he didn't run for president. He accepted to be vice president, and he got elected. So his highest political office occurred during this Venus Rahu. Interesting, huh? See the strong aspect here. Then he was vice president until Clinton lost 8 years they had. So he left during Mercury. You see, Mercury's in the 8th house. It has nothing to do with Rahu, really, except being in Aquarius. We have to give it that, you know. But anyway, 8th house is retirement, isn't it? So that's when of course, he tried to become president, but he lost. They say he lost. You know, there's still a lot of people who feel that it was not a fair fight. But anyway, he accepted that he'd lost. So it may be something to do with Mercury. Mercury's a peaceful planet in the 8th house. It's okay. And then he pivoted into being a climate. I mean, he'd always been interested in the climate. But this is what he's more famous for in a way. So this has been going on since then. I don't have specific events, but you can see this period was had its own special power to it. Maybe this sun period. I mean, like, I don't have any events for that. There probably are. We can't. But that famous video he made, or we call it a movie, it was kind of a video, which that was somewhere in here. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that had a very big impact in terms of those days. Everyone was in denial, but Al Gore was beating the drum for the climate action, and they ignored him, but we heard about it. So anyway, you can see he's quite a good example for the Ashtottari analysis. Let's try this guy. This is Alfred Nobel. Now, Alfred Nobel is the one who started the Nobel Prize, but he spent his life creating weapons of mass destruction. When he was, young, there was explosives. Humanity had had explosives for a long time, but their quality they weren't that dangerous. So he thought, I can make a really dangerous explosive. And he worked on it. And you see, he was working on it here in the Rahu Dasha. And they were getting close to succeeding because his brother managed to blow the factory up and kill himself. I mean, I don't know if the brother was responsible, but it happened. The brother was killed in an explosion in the factory. So this was all going on during the Rahu Dasha. Now we look at the Rahu Dasha, we see Rahu is exalted. If you consider Gemini exalted, which my guru does, and I think it works very well, it makes a lot of sense. So it's still very strong in Taurus, we can't ignore that. But Rahu's here, of course, he's not Rahu indicates somebody is going to die in the 9th house. And then it's aspecting all of these guys over here in the Lagna. So it's very interesting that what happened, there's a Rashi Drishti here on these two. See, there's quite a strong aspect between Gemini and Virgo always. So anyway, during the Venus-Rahu sub-period, he managed to get his dynamite patented. You know, he'd invented dynamite, he got it patented in England, and, you know, he made a fortune out of it because everybody had to have it. And it's used, of course, for many things other than killing, is mining and things. So that was, and he made other weapons. So this went on during Venus and then Sun, you see. But when you get to the moon, see the moon's in the 8th house from Rahu. They really have nothing to do with each other. Rahu's certainly got some aspect here. He's got an aspect here. But when the moon came, in fact, moon Venus, I think he was coming to the end of his life, and he probably felt, what have I done? You know, this is what happens at the end of your life. You think, what have I done? So then he put his money into the Nobel Peace Prize and the other prizes. I think the Peace Prize was his main concern, you know. So he may have made war much more dangerous, but at least he did that. So we're all grateful to him for that. This all came during the moon period. So I just thought it was noteworthy, the relationship of the Rahu and the moon. Rahu really drove the business. So, all right. So that I thought was an interesting example. So let's have a look at our beloved Pope. See, Pope Francis, I'm very fond of Pope Francis. He has Ketu rising, and then Rahu, Jupiter, Sun, and Mercury all there in Sagittarius in the 7th house. And then Venus and Moon in the 8th, you see, being fully aspected by Rahu. So there's a lot of energy here. Of course, being in Sagittarius with Jupiter, there is strong spiritual dimension to it all. So now, what about Pope Francis? So he, again, I've got a list of events I hadn't entered here, but so here's Rahu Dasha, and what happened right here is that he suddenly, you know, he found God, as it were, and that might have been just at the end of Jupiter. But when Rahu started, he became a novice. So he started on his whole training as a priest. I presume that's what novice represents. And this went on the whole way through his Rahu Dasha. And as soon as Venus started, he was ordained as a priest. And that was here in 69. Then he started training as a member of the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, and he completed that here in Venus, Jupiter, and he was immediately appointed as a senior. I don't know how you get to be a senior just after you graduate, but he was made one of the superiors, they call them, went back to Argentina. So this happened during the Jupiter, see? Powerful thing going on. So he became a kind of a guru at this stage. And so this went on, but the thing was that he and the Jesuits didn't like him because he was a bit too pragmatic, I think. You know, the Jesuits in those days, God bless them, were very pro, you know, liberation, what they call liberation theology. There was a lot of military dictatorships in South America and a lot of people disappearing and all that. And the Jesuits are really trying to stand up for the people, I guess. And Francis wasn't, I'm sure, against that, but he was more pragmatic. So eventually they told him, don't stay with us, go stay somewhere else. And he was promptly appointed a bishop. So in Sun Saturn, here, it was sort of the end of the Jesuit phase, and he became a bishop. And after that, he started rising. He had been in a senior position with the Jesuits. He was head of one of their universities, things like that. But anyway, so this is where there's a sort of turnaround. And this is in, here. Might have been in Sun Jupiter, actually. And then, the dates, Wikipedia hardly ever gives the exact, date of these things. So then he became a cardinal, 2001. It's actually this, about 3 days after this moon Jupiter. See the Jupiter? And Jupiter just keeps pushing him up, right? So here he's becomes a bishop, he's becoming a cardinal. And then it was during the Mars period that he became Pope. So now what about Mars? This was March 2013. So we're here in the Venus subperiod. The subperiods are generally more important, I would say, for these kinds of applications. Venus is, of course, very strongly activated by Rahu, but Mars is there in the Kendra. It's in the 10th house. It has Digbala from Rahu, so we can't ignore that. So this is where he's been, and now we're here in the Mercury subperiod. It's still connected. It's still connected. So I'm not going to say anything about how long he's going to stay in the job, but that wouldn't be fair. But you could start discussing it based on the subperiods that are going on here. But Mercury, in a sense, will tend to keep him going because of it being part of this yoga as the Lagna Lord. Okay. See what we got here. Angelina Jolie, how about that? All right. So look at this lovely chart. So Venus rising, very close to the ascendant. Then we have Rahu in a trine to it. And Rahu is in a trine, of course, the moon, the Lagna Lord. And Jupiter and Mars are here, and these guys are opposite Rahu. So the only planet that's really not particularly connected to Rahu is Saturn. So anyway, let's see. This is quite good for a successful life, I would say. So if we go back to, you see, she got started pretty early. Her first, the first movie that really meant something was in here. It was just in here, Venus, Mercury. You see, Mercury is the Atmakaraka. This probably plays a role. So that was a film called Hackers. That got her noticed, we could say. And then she got married, Venus, Mars, and divorced and married and divorced. But she got an Oscar in 2000, January. So that was during this period, the sub-period of the sun. So you see, I just wanted to have a different viewpoint on these things, because you can say, okay, sun is with Ketu, maybe that's not good for fame. But the reality is that it's really is part of the yoga. It has a yoga with Rahu. So we can't, we should be careful what we write off. So Venus and the sun are both in a yoga with Rahu. So I think that's quite strong. Of course, almost everything is in this chart. So anyway, that's the Oscar. And then in June 2001, which is here in Venus, that's when the Lara Croft, Tomb Raiders thing that really made her like mega superstar. So it's this double Venus in the Lagnas, really. I mean, look at this, I mean, you can see the utility of the Astottari Dasha. I mean, if this is Vimshotri, everybody say, sure, she's bound to become famous. But you see it working in the Ashtottari. Okay, she got divorced, but she had this huge achievement. And so anyway, it went on after that. I mean, she's an ongoing mega success. But this is when it really, she hit the jackpot there. This is when she had, this is the Brad Pitt phase during the moon here. Moon Rahu, she married him. Well, there's a yoga. I mean, this is part of marrying somebody that famous is also part of your drama. But then Saturn, that was the end of that. So this is when the Saturn's showing up in the 12th house there. Yeah. Okay, let's just do one or two more. Are there any questions sitting there? Okay, not too much, no. Okay, so fine. Elvis. Well, Elvis is your classic, isn't it? So anyway, here we have, you see Venus with Rahu. This is a fantastic yoga, really, for having some kind of mega success as an entertainer or something. Entertainer, designer, or something. So anyway, there's that, and then Saturn, Moon, of course, aspected. Here's Mars, the Lagna Lord. So let's see. Now his whole thing, you see, the Love Me Tender, this was here in Venus, Saturn. And then, well, marriage. I don't know what might happen. I mean, he got married, but that was Mercury. Of course, the Atmakaraka is important, very important. And then, it's such a short period of time between his there's about 10 years, 10, 11 years, that's it. And yet Elvis sold more records than anybody else has ever done. So it's just phenomenal, the output. But the poor guy, he just fell into this drug habit like so many. And when he got to Venus, it finished him, unfortunately. So in this case, you see, Venus is the lord of the 7th and the 12th. So we might have thought that there's a potential. You see that what you'll see in these examples is that like something bad happens, it's often tied up with Rahu somehow. So Rahu can create the drama on both sides. It can definitely create the mega success. It can also create some tragedy. So that's Elvis, and then maybe we could look at, let's try Prabhupada, the ISKCON guru. So I wanted to show some spiritual chart, you see, not just the entertainers. So Atmakaraka is Rahu. And of course, it's opposite Jupiter, the Lagna Lord. So this yoga here was really the whole story of, not the whole story, but this is the temple building yoga here in the 9th house. So he's built so many temples. Now, if you look at his life, Mercury, which is exalted here in the 10th house, there's a special yoga here. Now, is it connected to Rahu? Well, Rahu is considered to be the co-lord of Virgo. So there is some kind of connection. But what's happening during Mercury? He becomes a Vaishnava. maybe he was always a Vaishnava, but he becomes a serious Vaishnava. So at the beginning of Mercury, doing Mercury moon, see moon exalted. If you study this chart, you end up seeing that this exalted moon is the Lord Krishna in his chart. So during Mercury moon, he gets his Vaishnava Diksha or initiation. So that is going on. His life continues, normal life, married, children, job, that's going on. Saturn is going on. But when Jupiter starts, this is when he remembers his gurus. His guru told him he should go to the West and teach. So he became a sannyasi here in Jupiter Mercury. And then he set off for America in Jupiter Sun. And this was his whole mission here, was this period of Jupiter. And then when the Rahu started, he died. So we've had two charts with this Rahu in the third house. Having some connection to death. But anyway, so there we are. I thought this was actually quite a good example of the system working. So I'm just looking to see if there are any questions. Oh yeah, so Annie Lennox hasn't died. Most of these people haven't died. I just picked one or two to see. So the thing about Ketu is that Ketu is said to be headless because it was one demon and then the Lord Vishnu sliced the head in order to stop the nectar getting to the demon, because it deceptively managed to obtain some of the nectar of immortality. But the drop had already descended. So it was basically cut into two parts, and both parts lived because they'd been exposed to the nectar. So Rahu is the head and Ketu is the body. This is the traditional understanding. So Rahu is all about that intelligence, that super smart. We're not manipulating the environment because of our muscle. I mean, most of the animals have more muscle than we have. We're doing it entirely because of this. So it's the Rahu is the great manipulator. And the body has nothing to do with that. The body is just there. So Ketu, if we're taking it from a spiritual point of view, has no head. So it's the typical state of enlightenment, headless, So we don't consider drishtis for Ketu, for spirituality. And we like to stick to spirituality because the other side of Ketu is not nice. So we're not saying that sometimes that I is there, but not for a good cause, really. Yeah, I mean, whether Parivartana messes up a rule or not is always a question. But I wouldn't say so in this case. The thing about Parivartana, that means when two planets exchange signs. So if there's an exchange, there's the possibility of some kind of switcheroo sort of thing happening. But it's no guarantee that it'll happen. Usually some event has to occur in a particular dasha of one of those planets that causes that sort of shift to take place. Then the person will behave a bit like the planets in the other place. But it doesn't sort of wipe out all the yogas that already existed. And there may be a falling back later on. After some time, it kind of reverts. It all depends on the chart. You have to study the chart and all of that to see that. Okay. You see, this is the point, Aya. Very good question. So that this is my point here really is that, and this is not, comes out of my research for this lecture, is I realized that what Rahu is indicating is that, okay, sometimes something bad happened, but a lot of times it was Raja Yoga, the person became very successful because they applied their smarts to their career, for example. I mean, I didn't spend much time on marriage. I've always noticed marriage can be seen in Ashtottari in some charts, definitely very clear in some charts. But for the big drama of life, this yogas with Rahu and the Astottari Dasha, they often show, as we've been seeing, there's some clear indication. In fact, if a planet's not connected to Rahu, then it can't do much in this Dasha system. So this is a whole different view of the thing. I think it is for me anyway, and you can come to your own conclusions. And then the question of, well, it's well placed or not doesn't really apply. It's placed where it's placed for whatever purpose it has to provide. And then that placement has to be taken into account, but it doesn't mean that its yogas will be negative or it will be negative. But we've seen, you know, Rahu in the third doesn't seem to be too good for longevity. I mean, the longevity may be fine, but eventually it may play a role in the person dying. Maybe. But this is just a couple of examples. One has to study this in more detail. So those are the questions. Any more questions?
Andrew, very great class. Very good. I don't think there is...
Very good questions.
There are some new questions.
Oh, good.
I would like to know. Could you just read them yourself, because
yes,
they are complicated.
Yeah, that's how I don't know, Putin. Vladimir Putin's chart. Yes, you'll want to know. The trouble is the Ukraine chart has real problems. So that's probably a large part of the why it's all dragging on. Yeah, and then you see maybe his birth chart isn't right. But the thing is, he's bound to have a Libra Lagna, I think. The Russian Federation has a very strong Libra. He tends to identify himself, I think, with Russia. So, yeah, so that's the point, you see. Things may look bad for Putin. I mean, if we have the right chart, it doesn't look great. But then it doesn't look great for Ukraine either. So that's why, you know, dragging on. It will come to an end. There's the bad phase of Ukraine's dashas won't go on forever. Yeah, if Rahu is in Pisces, does it mean there is an exchange between Rahu and Ketu? Yes. I mean, I'm not saying you have to give heavy weight to it, but there is definitely some kind of exchange going on. Rahu has got trinal aspects, same aspects as Jupiter, plus the second house. It's the only planet with this second house aspect. You got to understand the basic idea, one way of seeing it anyway, is that Rahu is moving in a retrograde motion, and it's like a big ship and it leaves its wake behind it. You know, if you're in a small boat and you try to go behind some big ship, the ship's moved on, but it's still, the water is really choppy. So you're going up and down and you think you're going to drown. So this is the effect of Rahu, because the second house is really the 12th house as far as it's concerned. It's the Rashi or Nakshatras that it's just crossed. And so there's this kind of turbulence over there. So this is one sort of logic for this drishti. But there may be other reasons why there's a drishti there. But it's still very strong. It has a very strong effect. So this is the thing. Rahu is looking at multiple places, 4 places, and where it's sitting. So the impact of Rahu is rather extensive, unfortunately, we could say. One has to kind of find a way of becoming friendly with Rahu. If you go through the mantras of Rahu, then they're, you know, I found that it's a sort of a remedy. People do feel benefit if they're suffering from some Rahu-related problem.
No, I think the mantras are very important. All the gurus and spiritual teachers I met, they all emphasize the japa.
Hmm.
So your book is very valuable for that reason, that people can do all the 108 mantras, or like you have said, right where the pada is of Rahu, you can do just that specific one.
Exactly. Yeah, whichever pada the like in the software. I mean, this is easy enough. It's in the books, page 7, that has a table, but the
Yeah, you can just show that.
yeah, you see, for example, here the nakshatra name and pada number. No, that wasn't it. Excuse me. It's got the number 108 here, the mantra number count. Yeah, if you search on 108, you get it right away. So you see, it's mantra number 91 in the book.
But specifically in the Rahu Dasha, Rahu mantras, 91.
Yeah, 91 in the Rahu mantras. So
yeah.
then you just get the book and have a look at 91. Om Balane Nama. Balane means the powerful one. Very powerful. So this is the Atmakaraka, you see. I mean, someone who accomplished as much as him. I mean, it's not a weak person. Look at it. He was, what, in his 80s or something. And he transformed to so many people. Phenomenal.
Continues to do.
Yeah.
Andrew, I think also one point came to me about the Ashtottari Dasha is that you see, especially it's used in Eastern India, where Calcutta and all those places where the worship of the goddess is very important.
Right.
A goddess Durga, who's the deity for Rahu, you
Exactly.
know. And if you go there, you see a lot of beautiful spiritual aspect with Rahu. So maybe as part of being more spiritual, with Rahu instead of more materialistic, the worship of the goddess is important. And all the great gurus, they always had a big emphasis on goddess worship and Navratri and all those things.
Absolutely right. Yeah, the remedy for Rahu really is Durga.
And it was very good lecture. Thank you, Andrew, very much. And I'd like to remind you all again about the BAVA Conference, which is on Rahu. And you see, we always at a conference, we have new things. We don't have old stuff, that is repeated again and again. And so, you'll see that I'm just getting the page up so that I'm not doing that we will have a number of topics that have never been discussed before, or we could say secret knowledge. And here we have again. And so please do book, because we make a lot of effort for these things. And if you book early, then we know, we feel confident that our effort is bearing fruit. And a lot of very unusual subjects that Sarbani is talking about Rahupati versus Shubhapati. Vijay Goyal is talking about Rahu Ketu transit. I'm talking about Kal Sarpa Yoga. Panditji is talking about remedies. Andrew is talking about Rahu's special aspects. So then Sanjay Rath is talking Chara Karaka Rahu Part 1, Rahu as desire causing rebirth. So there's just so much interesting stuff that we have. And that is extremely useful for all of us as astrologers, not just to you, even myself or Andrew. We still gain a lot from these conferences. So we are hoping to have you attend it. And thank you. Andrew, you want to say anything else?
No, this is really fantastic. Everybody's just focused on so many different aspects of Rahu Ketu. And really, this is the crux of the whole of Jyotish, really, the karmic component.
And I think we are also going to be sharing the recording with you. So it's really, you know, a labor of love, you can say. And Rahu is with Jupiter. So he's emphasizing,
Yes.
you know, Guru is emphasizing that we should understand Rahu. So,
Yes.
so thank you again for attending. We had a very good attendance as well. So namaste.